Audio.
Hey everyone, we are here with some filmmakers from Shorts Block 5. Just an amazing amount of awesome shorts today, and this is our second Q&A of the day. I can't even speak anymore. We are here with Anthony Salidi from Deep End, which is the world premiere. Thank you for trusting us with that.
Thank you for having us.
We have Leah, who is the lead actress or the only actress in Face Your Fears.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We have Andrew Bell from Let Me Play.
Hey guys. Thanks for having me.
Brian Evans from Inflatio. Inflatio. Inflatio, okay. Kai Pacifico.
It's also been called Inflatio.
Inflatio, okay. Kai Pacifico from The First Taste.
Hello.
Hannah Mae Cumming with Camp Calypso. Neil Stevens, the director and writer of Face Your Fears.
Good to see you again.
And Carly Boone, also from Camp Calypso. Let's see. And I'm Gwen, the director of the festival, in case anyone didn't recognize me from all the intros for all the shows. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. It really means a lot to us that we could make this festival happen online when we knew, kind of looking at the writing was on the wall that we weren't going to be able to be in the theater for our festival dates. So switching over to streaming made us really nervous because we knew that there was some concerns. As a filmmaker, I'm sure that there's concerns about your film getting out online. So we wanted to make sure it was really secure and that it would be a good experience for everyone. And we're just really happy that you came along on this journey with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Anthony, I'm just going to kind of go around quickly. And Anthony, with Deep End, your world premiere. So that movie felt a little, I identified strongly with that movie, wearing glasses since I was 10. It kind of felt like it was set in a timeless time period, but it sort of reminded me of my childhood. I think my aunt had a pool exactly like that with the slide and everything. What was the genesis of that film? And it was just so wonderful having this seemingly innocuous, like idyllic setting and then having it be just horrible underneath.
Yeah, Zach, who was a co-writer on the movie, he and I had this idea for a feature film that we're working on and writing, and kind of want to make a short as a proof of concept for that. And we really like that idea that you just said. It's like, having this beautiful setting that seems really idyllic and having a horror lurk under that, we just thought was really cool. But yeah, it was we found this amazing pool in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, actually, and we shot it there. And we just thought the location was like really cool and weird with that astroturf from the slide. So we really we wanted to distill it down to its simplest form and just make like a really cool, clean 5-minute version of this feature film idea that we have. And
is that feature film like coming soon, or?
Yeah, hopefully. We're working on it. Yeah.
Okay. I know that the lockdown has put a lot of things on hold, but it kind of has given people an opportunity to do some extra pre-production and development.
Exactly. Yeah, we're toiling away trying to get that going.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump over to Andrew. Andrew, with Let Me Play, brave working with children. It's a brave choice. Was that something that you had planned, that you wanted to tell a story from a child's point of view?
Yeah, a little bit. I've been doing a lot of like volunteer teaching, mentoring with kids that age, and it's finding them easier to talk to than other adults, And I don't know, I just started thinking about my own childhood and a relationship with my sister and things that kind of scared me, and made sense to go back to, the dark corners of Grandma's house there. Yeah, and actually the kids were the easiest to work with on that set. I had more trouble with the grandma and, with the crew than the kids. The kids were easygoing. They were great. They were, doing their homework between takes. It was a dream situation. So. Yeah.
And what was kind of the so it's basically a ghost story, and there's this kind of interaction between the sister and brother, and it's interesting because we're seeing a lot of these a lot of films that kind of delve into like interpersonal relationships as a really strong theme in a lot of this year's films. And is that something that you tend to gravitate towards in your storytelling as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to, start from character. I started as doing more stuff in theater, so I'm used to having a little bit less to work with. I became more of a visual storyteller over the last few years when I started making films. So I think I always just kind of start with people in a room together.
I'm going to move on to Brian Evans. And actually, there's a question for you here in the chat. Alex Hartwig asks, was Infladio inspired by a true story?
No, it's not inspired by a true story. Really, the concept came from just kind of odd places. A couple things kind of connected for me. It wasn't really just one thing. Part of me just really wanted to make a film that was really dark and gritty, that kind of looked like Seven. I'm a big David Fincher fan. And I also love films that have that kind of have a hook, or lead the audience down a path and then flip the script on them. So that was my main goal with it, was to basically make the audience think, okay, this guy's going to get murdered. Okay, oh my gosh, he's might be a cannibal. He's going to get eaten, and then oh my God, he's going to get raped, and then completely flip that idea on you, and just kind of hold suspense and release the tension as we did at the end there. Yeah.
I have to say, when we were watching film submissions and we got to your film, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like another gross torture porn film. But then the ending just kind of really,
once you see the beans in the cabbage.
Yeah, once you see the beans in the cabbage, you're like, what's happening here? You're like, what is that food he's eating? And then just the flashback to the bullies and everything just brought it around really nicely. And then I loved the editing with like the guy's butt just kind of sliding across the screen.
So that was one of that was the last shot. Actually, it was a 2-night shoot. That was the final shot. I think it was about 3 a.m. that we were kind of getting our martini shot, and it was putting our lead actor Ryan on a dolly and just kind of dollying his butt cheeks into frame very slowly, which I just thought would be comedic and just I don't know, have a good kind of comic effect. And if anyone had actually looked in that cabin at 3 a.m. and seen this crew pushing this guy across the room, it would have been quite the sight. And honestly, if I hadn't called cut a second later, my other actor, Aaron, would have really been in bad shape. But luckily, he stopped in time, right at that cut. And so it worked out.
Well, it looks like we've lost Andrew, but hopefully he'll jump back in. Okay, Anthony, sorry. Well, excellent. It was, I mean, one of the reasons why we ended on the block with your film is because we figured that nobody would be able to pay attention to whatever was next. Because if they were anything like us, the fart joke at the end was just too much. Too much.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So Kai, I'd like to talk to you about the first taste. Is this student? Is this like a student project, a thesis for you?
Sort of. So I got the opportunity was it 2018? I forget, all the years blur together now, even though I'm like 20. I got the opportunity in 2018 to go and study abroad in the Czech Republic as part of a 16-person program, and we studied at FAMU, which is the film school there, and we were put into groups of 3, and we're just asked to go crazy. Really, we said, you're going to get 16 millimeter, you're going to get a couple 100 feet of it, and just do whatever you want. So a lot of the first taste comes from me, my weird bisexual brain, a lot of witchiness from my good co-director Amanda Violetto and our DP Sakna Sam. Really put it all together.
Very nice. I loved all of the kind of homages to some classic horror films, like the scene of the mom with all the flowers in her hair, and it was really, really some beautiful moments. And I love the interplay between the mom and the son, because it felt sort of like a genuine, like mom has no idea what's going on in her son's life.
Yeah.
But she clearly cares about him, but then he's, you know, trying to do his own thing. But is that the, you know, like the self-discovery? I mean, it's really kind of a coming of age and rite of passage in
Yeah, it's very
a
coming of
couple
age.
ways for it.
Yeah, we wanted to play a lot with kind of sort of, you know, vampires are very associated with sex and like sexuality and kind of, you know, being very open about that, but we want to take sort of a different angle and kind of have more of a classically toxically masculine angle on it. Like the vampires within the First Taste are very like, oh, the male vampire does all this stuff and, you know, imposes all these certain ways, and it's very, the vampires of the First Taste are very straight for the most part, and we wanted to kind of tackle, you know, coming out to a parent or in a different setting besides like, you know, a family environment, something with a bit more, I don't know, it's weird to say edge to it, but it's something with a bit more edge to it.
And were your actors, did you find them in the Czech Republic? They were.
Yeah, we put a piece of paper up outside of the film school, just a piece of paper on a wooden door that said "Casting for Gay Vampire Film." We got people. It's pretty great.
Very nice. And have you shot on film before, or is this your first
No,
time?
that was my first time shooting on film. It was nerve-wracking because we really had like limited amount of time, and the set was incredible, and we had all these arguments about getting wide shots and getting all these inserts. But I think, you know, because of the limitation, I really like working with film because of the limitation. It really kind of helps you distill down exactly what you want out of the shot, exactly pull it directly out of your brain and kind of get exactly what you need to tell the story in the way that's supposed to be told. And I think that it was really helpful to have that sort of limitation.
Nice. Awesome. I'm going to move on to Hannah. So Hannah, this is the second film that we've screened of yours. Last year we played Fanatico, which was kind of a Giallo Italian throwback. And then this one is very much in the family of like Friday the 13th, but not quite. What made you decide to let's do a camp slasher monster movie?
Well, I spent a lot of my childhood in the Bible Belt, and all of the summer camps around me were like Bible camps, and my family's atheist, so I never went, but I've always wanted to go to summer camp, so I guess that was a big inspiration. And then Sleepaway Camp is like one of my favorite horror movies. I love the costumes and the whole vibe and the campy characters and all of that. So that's kind of I think we like to play with existing horror subgenres and like put our twist on them. So that's one we decided to go with.
Nice. And Carly, you also worked on that. Are the two of you producing partners? Like you guys work together a lot?
Yeah. Work together, live together.
We're in the same house right now.
Oh,
but
funny. There's in different rooms.
So she produced Fanatico with me, and then we both co-directed Kim Calypso.
Okay, nice. Cool. Well, we loved the way it looked. What was casting like for you? Because like you really kind of nailed, when you watch movies that were made in the 70s and 80s, like people have kind of a look that's obviously different, like in some ways to movies that were made in the 90s and, modern era, like their hair and like makeup colors and the way they dress and everything. Like, did you have to do a lot of research? Did you just watch a lot of movies? How did you come to nail that look so well?
Our costume designer, Emma Kogan, she's just like a really knowledgeable fashion historian. She loves 60s and 70s fashion. So any question we had, we went to her. She knew it all. So
nice. And was it hard finding the wardrobes and set pieces for it? Did you have to make a bunch of stuff? Did you have to scour Goodwills?
A lot of scouring. Yeah, we went to probably 20 antique stores, like shopping for this thing. Emma like hand embroidered some stuff, like the whole patch vest, like she handmade that whole thing. It was a lot of just like her kind of putting her own spin on like pieces that we already had or that we would find at like a Goodwill.
Nice. And there's a question for you in the chat here. Emily Clay for Hannah and Carly loved Camp Calypso. Did you learn anything from making your last production, Fanatico, that you applied to Camp Calypso?
Definitely. Fanatico took like a whole year. And from the day I started writing the script to the day we wrapped production, it was like 3 months. We shot the whole thing in 8 days when Fanatico was like 1 day every 2 months, just like trying to finish the movie. So,
Nice.
really.
And a follow-up question is, where was it filmed? And did the location create any limitations for you or bring about any inspirations or revisions to the script?
We filmed at Magnus Tree Farm in Sherwood, and we got it completely for free. We filmed while it was open to the public.
With
It's
permission.
just kind of like this huge camp area. It's got all these old cabins that aren't habitable really anymore. And you know, we had people letting their kids go run around during our lunch breaks and stuff, and we just made it work. But yeah, we found it, and we knew we were gonna do like something with a camp, and then we found that place, and I think it, you know, we just knew that that was gonna be our camp.
Nice. It was I did actually go to summer camps when I was a kid up in upstate New York, and it was like a YMCA camp. So not super Christian, but a little bit. It does seem like all the summer camps are a little Christian, but
Yeah.
it rang very true with like the different people you meet, and I would always, I don't know, it was eye-opening, kind of like going, it was kind of like traveling, except that I was only like 2 hours away from home because there was a bunch of other kids from all over the state that came there for 2 weeks. And it was
Yeah.
just interesting to see how different things were in not your suburb.
Mhm.
So that was pretty fun to see. For Neil, with Face Your Fears, we really loved your film. Um, a lot of the atmosphere and the look of it really reminded us of some classic like things that you would see on a show like Tales from the Dark Side or an afternoon ghost story kind of program. What was the inspiration for this one?
Well, I grew up on Tales from the Crypt. So I don't know if that was, and I love Tales from the Dark Side and Tales from the Hood, all the Tales from the whatever. I'm a big fan. Of course, The Twilight Zone is a show that's probably like my biggest influence. Yeah, I guess I've been influenced by those kind of like anthology short form things. I think for this I wanted to do something involving games, analog games, because I'm old enough to remember when we played games through analog. And now there's something really creepy about them because everything's digital, and these old sort of analog games are now like, ooh, like a relic of another time period. And I think there's something interesting about that.
So that box that you use in the film was amazing. Who, I mean, that was clearly custom built. Who made that
It's
for
right
you?
here, actually.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, that was a prop shop. I had a designer who we kind of worked together for a long time to come up with the design for it. And then there was the Talman Studio prop shop, kind of like took my design, and then there were a lot of kind of mechanics with it, like the fingers come up, and there's a crank that kind of go, like a lot of these things kind of operate on their own, so there had to be like batteries in it, and we used like hooks and wires. So it was quite an undertaking. To to build a game is a lot of work in and of itself, aside from all the other stuff that goes involved with making a movie. But it was, in the end, I think it was worth it.
It was money well spent, I think, because it really was like a weighty object that had a lot of presence in each scene that it was in. Did you construct a larger version of it? Because at some point, Leah is being pulled, her body's being pulled into it. And the, you know, in the previous scene, we see that it's only, you know, it doesn't look like it's wide enough to pull her shoulders in.
Yeah, there were two boxes. There was the one that you see that she could actually, we could fit some of her in that thing. And then we used another larger box that we would shoot from underneath that was like, I don't know, like 4 feet high, so that to make it look like it was deep. And then she would go inside that box, which was a lot wider. So yeah, we had this box, and then we had the larger box where she was, when she kind of like goes into another dimension almost.
Wow. And that was really interesting. The when she loses her necklace and is looking in and sees the water under, floating in there. How did you accomplish that effect? Did you use practical CGI, a mix?
We use mostly practical. It was kind of hard. Anytime you deal with water, for future reference for our fellow filmmakers here, you're inviting a lot of challenges. So we
Back that up.
yeah, right. So we basically put a 2x4 underneath the box, and we dropped it on the 2x4, and it was just slightly under the water to make it look like it was floating. And then shining a light on it to show it, and then all the water had to be kind of, we filled it with what was it, like Jello mix or like all kinds of stuff to make it weighty, but it wasn't really enough. So that was like visual effects of making it seem like some water from another world, what was like just kind of very mucky and strange, I guess.
And Leo, what was it like for you? Because some of the scenes are kind of very traditional, where you're sitting on the couch, you're sitting on the floor, and then you have to look at this box and like manipulate it and follow instructions and then get sucked into it. What was that whole thing like for you?
The box really was another character in the film, and it had a life of its own. And it really, I mean, yeah, it's just a box, but in my work that I put into, my imagination work that I put into, bring the story to life, it freaked me out. And it had a life, and it was more than just a box. It was like this dark vortex that had power over me in some way. And essentially it was, it was just another character, like it was an actor.
Nice. And was it pretty easy to get into that headspace?
This is what I've been training for. It's never easy to get into it, but it's fun once you're there. As tormenting as sometimes it can be, because depending on what story the actor has imagined to make the life full, once you're in that, it can be frightening, but also this is what, us actors love. This is what we train for. You have to be a bit of a masochist to enjoy it. So I guess I am a bit of a masochist as an actor, because it's hard, it's frustrating, and it's scary and dark sometimes when you allow yourself to go into those dark, scary places that really elicit maybe a true experience for you as you're telling the story. But it can be very rewarding at the same time.
Nice. And how did you come to the project? Did you know Neil before, or was it a casting call?
Actually, we belong to this amazing studio in LA called Stuart Rogers Studios, and he is like our acting guru. He's a teacher, and it's just an amazing community. And Neil studied there. How long ago, Neil? Like maybe.
Before I became a filmmaker, several years ago. So I was still kind of active in that community.
Yeah, and so I was recommended by one of our teachers to Neil.
Nice. And what was that process like did you like the script? Did you like the feeling of the character? Was it something you wanted to, have you done horror before?
I haven't done horror. It was my first time. But I read it. Neil is a fantastic writer. And I read it, and as an actor, I have to say the greater, I hate saying this, but some of the stuff I auditioned for just doesn't have a lot of richness and that, a lot of exploration that can be brought to life, because the characters are maybe surface level. But Neil's writing and his characters just have so much depth to them, and you can go so far with them. And the coolest thing about working with Neil is he brings so much to it. So he brings just all this backstory that he wants you to explore. And he made a playlist for my character. And so in listening, and maybe you can talk a little bit more to it and how you chose the songs, but in listening to the songs, it really allowed for me to kind of get into the world of my character and the mindset of my character. So it was phenomenal. It was a great experience.
So he gave you a lot to start with.
Yeah, he gave me so much to work with. More than just, there was already so much in the script, but then he's like, here's this. Listen to this entire playlist that I spent so much time creating for you. And he wrote down, a lot of, not backstory, but because he wanted for me to explore a lot myself and come up with a lot myself. But he just gave me a lot of hints to who my character might be. And then I took it and I ran with it. It was just so much richness.
That's really cool. And it's fun because other filmmakers have also mentioned that when they're making their films in previous Q&As, they've talked about playlists and like giving their actors and production crew and production designers like a playlist of music that inspired them to try to go off of. Do the rest of you do anything similar like that? Do you have kind of like audio or visual Pinterest boards, as it were, while you're making your films?
Are you asking the whole group?
Yeah, everyone.
I use some temp music for my composer, just to give him the idea. I used a couple tracks from Blade Runner 2049, and then a track from Gone Girl, and then a track from Justice. So it's just kind of all over the place. And I just use that for a little bit for a temp, temp edit, kind of rough edit. And then I just want him to kind of hear it once, but then not totally replicate it, find his own rhythm or whatever. But at least it's kind of a guide as to what I'm looking for.
Nice. Anyone else?
Yeah, when we start working on our composing as well, like I'll make a playlist and I'll use that like either for temp music or just to give them a general like idea of what we want. But we had to do that especially to kind of create like the siren song. That was definitely like a multi-process thing, kind of figuring out what we wanted that to sound like.
Talk a little bit more about that, because I thought the siren song was really nicely done. So did you have a composer working to create that for you? Yeah,
so it's actually both of our partners. They're our composers / producers. And they worked with a vocalist, Ellen
Nelson. Hi,
Nelson. And so she was the vocalist, and she came in and they recorded her vocals, and Carlo wrote the song, and Rudy produced it.
Very nicely done. Oh, the monsters. Oh yeah, monsters. You guys, all of you have, well, not all of you. So sorry, where am I? Anthony. Anthony, your monster was creepy AF, and the sirens in Camp Calypso were just fantastic. Can you, each of you, talk a little bit about what that process was like in getting the look for your monster and how that was accomplished?
Yeah, shooting our monster underwater was definitely pretty tough, and it's kind of a mix of some practical effects and some post-visual effects that we did to enhance certain things. But Joe Pease, who plays the monster in the movie, just did a great job, because it was so hard, like shooting underwater. And like we had this mask that was made by Immortal Masks, and they do incredible work. They make these like big silicone pieces, and it just looked like this, boggy, waterlogged man. And but we had to do a bunch of like painting on his hands and his arms and stuff, and all that had to hold up underwater. And what was definitely challenging about that was, by the time he would get in, to try and sink himself, his mask would like inflate with air and he would like start to float to the top. So we were sinking him down with dive weights and all that. And like by the time we would sort of get a shot off, he would just be like struggling to come back to the surface, and the lifeguard would just be like on edge, like ready to jump in and save him. But
So did he just have to hold his breath and jump in and then try to do
for
as
the
much
most
as he
part,
could?
yeah, like
God.
the DP was the only one who was on scuba, and everybody else was just kind of, we were just, we had an underwater radio where I was able to sort of like talk and give direction. They could at least hear me. So it was all pretty meticulously pre-visualized and like drawn out beforehand. So I could kind of show Carden, who's the boy in the movie, and Joe, who's the monster, like kind of exactly what we needed. But it was a lot of trial and error to sort of get our underwater legs started,
Mm-hmm.
But the final shot of the movie where the monster like lunges for the boy was definitely tough to pull off, because we had the boy's legs kind of in the foreground and he had to get underneath, and we had the camera on top. So it was kind of like a ladder kind of scaffold rig that we had over the pool. And but yeah, it was cool to pull it off. And then post-production wise, we enhanced his mouth and like kind of had it open and gave him some glowing eyes and some teeth and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm never swimming in a lake again, ever.
Stay away from the pools.
As long as I can see the bottom, it's okay. And for Camp Calypso with the sirens, like the makeup was really nice, and like I liked the concept of that.
Thank you. We definitely wanted it to be more like sea monster, like inspired by like Creature from the Black Lagoon and that kind of stuff. But we were doing, like, our effects artists were like doing the airbrushing and stuff in the wilderness, because we shot everything about an hour outside of Portland. So that was kind of crazy. And all of the sirens, like none of them wore contact lenses. So getting contact lenses in was horrible. Me and Carly were like prying their eyes open.
Yeah, Hannah's keeping her eye open, and I'm just like stuffing it in. Yeah, lots of airbrushing by like a generator. Yeah,
The porta potty.
a lot of our effects artists staying up all night in our basement, like making blood and guts, and just it was a hard 2 weeks for all of them, but happy with how it turned out.
What was everyone's pre-production like? I know for you guys, it sounds like you spent quite a bit of time trying to work all that stuff out because you were going to have to move it onto a location. Anthony, I'm sure that all that underwater work took some time. Neil, with getting the box ready and setting up for all those shots, and Brian and your like the location you were in and getting all that nice meal prepared and everything. How long did you have for pre-production, and like what was that process like for you? And anyone just jump in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Okay, so what's crazy about that cabin is it was white walls, and we found it in the middle of the woods, and we got the owner's permission. We said, hey, can we shoot a short film here? Can we kind of alter things? And he said, burn it down if you want, I don't care. And so I was like, yes, let's go. And so we went in there, and that was about 2 days of just set design, like grunging it up. It was already pretty nasty in there. There was a lot of trash and weird old food that people left behind. It was weird. I called it a tweaker's last stand. It looked like just, there was wrecked car, and it's in the middle of the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's a beautiful mountain range. And so it's just a really bizarre location. But anyways, once we found the correct location, as far as pre-production goes, probably the biggest thing was I storyboarded the film, pretty much shot for shot. And I had the idea for a really long time too. And so it had been marinating for quite some time. And so when it really came down to it, it was all about production design and getting that look in that cabin.
Nice.
Yeah, and for us, for Deep End, it was definitely there was a lot of work and a lot of planning that went into the underwater stuff. And we actually had a few stops and starts with the movie. I originally wanted to shoot it, I guess it was in late 2018. But finding the right pool location was like really challenging. The original plan was going to be to shoot the above water stuff like at a location that we liked, and maybe like shoot the underwater stuff at like a cheaper location at another pool that was like heated, and do it at night. But the idea of like shooting splits with a kid and doing the underwater stuff, it was challenging. So the DP of the movie, Bernard Hunt, who's amazing, his grandmother has this like house and this awesome pool in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So we were originally gonna shoot the movie in LA, but like 2 or 3 months before we were gonna shoot the movie, we ended up moving the production to the East Coast, where I'm from originally, and so is Zach, who's the co-writer. So we kind of had to like at the last minute find a kid on the East Coast who could act and hold his breath underwater, and act underwater and do all that. And Carden was fantastic, but there were definitely a lot of like safety concerns with like doing everything right underwater. And I had sort of shop designed everything and drawn it out in advance. And we cut it into like a pre-visualization basically, where we like had sort of a animated version of the movie with kind of sound effects and music and stuff, just to kind of find the pace of it. And that was really helpful to just, especially with no dialogue like this, to just be able to show Carden and the DP like exactly what we needed to get on those underwater shots. It was like very helpful to have all that prep work done.
How about you, Neil and Kai and Andrew?
So for our program, we got 1 month to do all of our pre-production, 1 month to shoot, but throughout that month we were shooting other people's films, we were all crewing each other's stuff, and then 1 month for post, and so 3 months total. And so the most grueling part of getting the first taste done to a point where we could shoot it was the story, because it wasn't even a vampire film. At first it started out as a stalker film, really interesting, and like this guy would follow all these women, and he would go through a train and through a tunnel and all this other random stuff. And we sat down, we pitched it to our professors who were our mentors, and they would greenlight the film and say, yes or no, you can make this, or no, you can't make this. And there's this one guy named Pavel, and we pitch, we're like, all right, and that's our stalker film. And he looks at us, he sits for maybe 30 seconds, he goes, yes, that's all very interesting. But what if they were vampires? From there, it all just kind of took off. The location was surprisingly easy. There was all of the set design, or there really was no set design, because our location was an Airbnb that just came like that. It was crazy. We slept there. It was probably haunted. They had like moving bookshelves and like creepy mirrors. And they had a wine cellar we had to hold up where we couldn't film because our room was above a wine cellar. And we were like, above the what? And then, yeah, just kind of nailing down the story, really getting the characters to where they could be and tell exactly what they had to do in the story, because they sat us down at the very beginning. They're like, all right, you guys have 8 minutes. That's all you get, because we're not giving you any more money. And so that was the most fun part of pre-production for me, I think.
How about you, Neil?
Yeah, so I mean, most of pre-production was the box, and believe it or not, the tarot cards that came out of the box actually took a really long time to design those, and come up with the rhymes. Oh my God, like. I'm doing this new project, a feature film, where I'm doing more rhymes, and I'm like, why am I doing more rhymes? Because the rhymes, I'll give credit.
The rhymes were amazing, bravo! Like,
thank you. Like Dr. Seuss has got to be one of the greatest writers in history, because he was able to come up with these incredible rhymes that like are simple and beautiful. Because it's really hard to like come up with the rhymes and the right meter, like if you're using like iambic tetrameter or whatever. So like, oh my God, I learned so much about rhyming. Now I know a little bit more about it. So yeah, it was mostly that, and the location actually is similar to Kai, where we just got a really cool location that already kind of looked like a haunted museum. So we didn't have to do a lot. I had my production designer bring in a lot of like masks and faces and like things that looked like people, and I was like, every shot I was like, let's put something over here or something in the background that looks like she's being watched, because I wanted the feeling of wherever she goes, there's like eyes watching her, or there might be something behind her, or maybe it's not, and like that playing with you know, whether you see something or you don't see something, and like that anxiety, like I wanted to create that atmosphere. So that was a little bit of work to gather all that stuff up together.
Nice. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, a lot of time just spent, you know, finding the right collaborators and translating my vision to them. You know, I was a lot of time spent finding the right kids, auditioning, just tons of them before finding the right combination. And then trying to do a period piece that's not really like 90s is period now, you know, which is weird to think about, you know, that's like 30 years ago. But yeah, just yeah, finding the right people and sharing images and getting onto the location and spending as much time in the space as possible beforehand was probably the most helpful thing with my DP, I'd say.
And was that a location you had to rent, or is that someone's house, or?
Oh yeah, that was a Airbnb we found. We contacted like 80 different Airbnbs and no one will let us shoot there. But then we found just this one perfect one with this crazy, like she's in her 70s. She was like this retired journalist who would spend the entire shoot just like up in the attic, just smoking joint after joint. And it just, I don't know. It ended up working out perfectly because she was down for it, you know. But yeah, just find the right spot. So.
And Carly and Hannah, like what? So you talked a little bit about the pre-production for the makeups, but what about the rest of like getting everyone dressed and getting everyone out there and like planning everything? What was that whole process like, and how long did you have to do that?
Like 3 months. We started pre-production in early April, and we were shooting by the end of June. So we had about 3.5 months total to get everything ready. And that was like development started, like we started writing the script in April. So it was pretty crazy, but it was a lot of, you know, just every single weekend doing something, going on a location scout, going shopping for it, like.
And this is also when our whole crew is like student filmmakers, so we were also in school and working, so it was a lot. It was a crazy 3 months.
Worth it?
Yes. Definitely.
Awesome. Let's see, any other questions in the chat that I missed? Oh, here's a question for Hannah and Carly also. What does co-directing look for you like on set? Did you ever have any disagreements about like decisions? And tell us about the motivation you have to work with directing together.
I honestly don't think we had a really good idea of what we wanted the film to look like from the beginning, and we were completely on the same page with that. So it was pretty smooth, I would say. And we are like best friends and we live together, and so it was really second.
I think, yeah, I think we just have a level of communication to where we just kind of are on the same page, and we have very similar personality types, and we're just, I don't know, we just when we want to do something, we just go and do it. So I think, yeah, we have like a pretty good line of communication, and yeah, there weren't really too many disagreements because we talked about everything in heavy detail before we got on set, thankfully.
Nice. Well, I actually have a question. I have a question for Neil about the story of Face Your Fears, because it really seems like this is a film where a lot of times filmmakers are kind of working out some kind of personal issue with their films. Is this something that's close to your heart? Like, were you afraid of the dark?
I was actually. I didn't really think of it until afterward when people were like, "Hey, so where was the motivation for this?" But like, I was like, "What was my motivation?" I was like, actually, I was terrified of the dark. I saw this movie called The Haunting, the old-fashioned 1960s Robert Wise movie, where like there's no monsters or anything. It's just like things kind of like lurking around in your imagination. And after that, I could not go down in my basement because whenever you go down in my basement, like you had to go through the dark to get to the light switch. So it was like, I was like, fuck it, I'm just not going down in the basement anymore.
Yeah, what is that about basements where there's like a naked bulb with a string
Yeah,
hanging from it, but you have
right.
to walk like 10 feet from the stairs to get to it?
It's ridiculous. Whoever designed these things, I mean, clearly they never watched horror movies, because like you should just be able to flick the light on and go down and go on your merry way. And but no, you got to like go into the dark. So eventually I did face my fears and start, you know, I would just run into the dark and I'd hope to grab it and flick it on as soon as possible. And I kind of got over it after a little while. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I was replaying this adolescent fear that I had when I was growing up.
And I love the twist at the end, because like now she's always going to be in the dark.
Yeah.
And speaking of, what was that like for you, having that, how much of that was prosthetic, and was there any CGI enhancement afterwards, or was that just all all practical for the eyes?
Yeah. I mean, so she had like 30-45 minutes of makeup where she had the prosthetics put on, and then we just added a little bit of post visual effects to make them look like black holes, basically, but it was mostly practical. And yeah, and she was totally game. It was, you know, it was a hard thing to do with the prosthetics, and she had to go into the box, and the box like falls on. It was a physically demanding thing, but she was a great sport about it and totally game. And yeah, it was great working
And
with her.
Leah, were you able to see out of the prosthetics, or were your eyes closed and then they applied it?
Actually, the artist was really talented. He took, I'm not sure what part of the prosthetic was, but he put it over my eye and cut a slit in it so I could see through. But I have to say, having those prosthetics on did half the job for me, because I could not look at myself in the mirror. When I looked at myself in the mirror and my eyes were blacked out, it had such a visceral effect on me. It freaked me out. It was, I don't know, try it sometime so you can understand what I'm talking about. But it was so freaky to see myself like that.
That is interesting, how much our own perception of ourselves relies on like a normal appearance of our own, what we're used to seeing in the mirror, and when that changes drastically, like how much of an effect that has.
Right. Yeah, and you know, so much is attached to our eyes and our face. I mean, they say it's the you know, the connection to our soul or whatever, but it wrecked me. I mean, I really don't feel like I was acting in that last bit because it really wrecked me.
Wow. Was there a recovery period after you wrapped filming that where you had to kind of come out of that character and then be yourself again?
You know, I always feel like there is, because we shot for 3 days, and you're living in that world for 3 days. So you're living in the mindset, and the way I approach my acting is, I do a lot of imagination work where it's a lot of kind of like meditative time where I'm spending a lot of time just in my thoughts and creating this backstory and this life that is robust. And this one was a little dark, and so you lived in it. And so I felt as if after shooting, it's just like I needed to scrub myself down and clean myself off, especially because it was, for me, it was dealing with like darkness and the danger that represents for my character, for Elisa, and then lightness. And so I just had to kind of meditate, clear myself out, and then be present again. But yeah, it took like maybe a day or so.
Not too bad. And for the folks making the films, do you also go through a similar, I don't want to be too woo-woo, but like a cleansing period after you wrap production on something? Does it take a minute to get out of that thing and then put your head in the next thing?
I get sick every time. I end up coming down with like all the stress of just months and months of pressure, and finally you ugh, and you just that's my experience at least.
To me, it's like it's super depressing to like come off of something because you're pouring like every second of your time and energy and there's such a focus uh, on it all the time, and then when it's over, you just suddenly feel like really empty. um, but then once you start tinkering again and editing and doing all that, you kind of get back into it. But there's nothing like the fun and the rush of when you're actually shooting and you're on set, and like the stress and craziness leading up to it beforehand is just like the best and worst thing always, you know.
I
Agreed.
would say there's definitely like, sorry, there's
Oh
a
no, go ahead.
thing for me when it comes to post filmmaking because I'm not at all a timely person. I will take 3 hours to get up. I actually signed on to the Zoom meeting and got dressed about 15 minutes before 4:45, which is when it's supposed to happen. But there's like being on set and being on a strict timetable, working with an AD especially is spectacular because they're really just, whipping me into shape. Our AD for the first taste, Josh Didier, was incredible. But after that, I really just kind of find myself working time into everything I do and like yelling at my pasta to boil faster and stuff. Kind of getting out of that mindset, relaxing a bit is a period that I have to take. Like you said, post is a whole different beast, and I enjoy it because it's dispersed. It's different to that, like, shot 1, shot 2, shot 3 type deal where you're going beat after beat. You have time to really reflect on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Brian, you were gonna say?
Oh, well, for me, it was kind of fun because I shot it, I directed it, and I did the editing. So I went from like a 7-day coolest camping trip ever, which was, 4 days of prep. And then the last 3 days, the actors came in. And what was so cool about the location was there was 0 cell service, no internet. So I branded it as this, filmmaking, camping trip. And I like to have fun on set. I want to make a set that's fun for everybody. That's why I do a ton of pre-production and to make sure that's just we get through this thing. But yeah, it was just really fun having family and friends there, and we got it all. And it was fun to jump into post-production right away. I mean, it was like that weekend I started cutting the footage, and within 3 days I had a rough cut, and I was like, oh, it's working. Oh, thank God. Okay, cool. We got something. So that, and going through that process kind of, extended that feeling, that awesome creative feeling of creating. But yeah, I agree with Anthony too, that it's just, it is heartbreaking when it's all over because it's such an amazing experience. That cabin is still in the woods. It still looks like that. So I want to like go back someday and visit it, I don't know if it's been torn down yet or not, but yeah, there's like a lot of memories from it.
Hannah and Carly, do you guys have a kind of a cooling off period? Are you guys working on multiple projects usually?
No.
I'm always writing something. I was writing Camp Calypso, or I was letting it simmer when we were still making Fanatico.
Yeah.
For Camp Calypso. And then the minute we stopped Camp Calypso, I started writing something else. Who knows if I'll ever make it.
That's the way to do it, though. You just kind of have to move on to the next thing and just keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, like with Camp Calypso, it was really weird because we had a really short pre-production period and we were living, breathing, sleeping in it for 3 months, and then we shot, and then everyone just kind of went their separate ways, and it was we were at camp for 2 weeks, and then everyone went home, and it was definitely sad, but we had a really fun wrap party a couple months later in a yurt, and it was great. It was it's going to be a very nostalgic memory, I think, in our lives.
Just like real camp.
Yeah, exactly. That was our goal.
And I just want to point out to everyone who's not from Portland that having a wrap party in a yurt is quintessential.
Yeah.
So great.
Try that.
Let's see. I had a random question about the accent for your character, the one that's from, where is she supposed to be from?
Joe.
Yeah.
New York. I don't know. Some like really like nasally funny. I think the character from Friends, Janice or something.
Okay.
Who our actress decided to base it off of, but
Okay.
yeah, we wanted some like really silly, characteristic for Joe. So.
So that actress doesn't have that accent normally.
Oh.
Okay. Because as soon as she opens her mouth, you're like, what's happening? It's really
Yeah, when she did the script read the first time in front of me, I was like, oh. I loved it though.
Yeah.
It really takes me off guard though.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we should probably wrap up here. We've been talking for almost an hour, but before we go, I would love for each of you to tell us where people can find out more about your next project. And if you want to say something about, if you know what your next project is, that would be great too. So where can people follow you on social media? Do you have a website? And do you have any upcoming projects to look out for? You can start, Leah.
You can find me at Leah Brise, Brise, Brise on Instagram. I'm really not great with social media, so have fun. And you know what? I'm constantly auditioning. Things are a little weird now with COVID because the industry is really trying to figure out how to, and maybe a question for your directors, how to keep the crew safe, how to keep actors safe. And so everything that I was working on is kind of put on hold, and it's all going to move on slowly, but it's all up in the air right now.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a project on hold for similar reasons, hoping to one day make my thesis film, my vampire movie. Work on 4 feature projects, writing them at once, hoping one of them, something happens with one of them. And you can search me on Facebook, I guess, but I'm not really on any of the other social media, unfortunately. So.
Brian?
Yeah, with everything going on, just obviously doing a ton of writing. I've got 2 horror shorts that I want to create, and a drama short that I want to do. I'm working on my first feature script, which is a beast, but I'm having fun with that. And just doing as much pre-production as I can, doing some storyboarding, trying to get those projects ready that when it does feel safe and that we can all get together, that we can move forward on those. And yeah, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Brian Evans Films. Pretty much that's my handle on Twitter, Instagram. That's my website too. And my first name's spelled uniquely. It's Bryon. I get called Byron all the time, so don't do that. And thank you for having me be a part of this.
Thank you for being here. Kai, you go.
Okay, so I'm working on stuff all the time because I can't keep my attention span in check. You can find me on Instagram at kpc.eng. And my next project, we were lucky enough to wrap it up filming in, I think, February, January, I don't really remember, but it's Cultivar. Cultivar is a sci-fi horror little joint that I co-directed with a good friend of mine, Brittany Viella. It's in my bio, again, at kpc.eng, or you can follow the Instagram for the film at Cultivar Film, and keep an eye out for that.
Hannah?
I just completed a script to my 3rd film. It's called Baby Fever. It's a 70s prom night pro-choice body horror movie. It should be fun. And then Carly and I and Emma Kogan, our costume designer from Kim Calypso, have a collective called Monstrous Femme Films that you can check out as well. Do you want to?
Is that going to be another short film?
Yeah, it's going to be like we're doing like an anthology type thing. So it's going to be like the 3rd installment to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. How about Neil?
I guess my Instagram. Sorry. Hannah May Films on Instagram.
Awesome.
I'm just Carly Boone on Instagram.
Neil?
I'm Neil P. Stevens on Instagram. I guess that's probably the best way to follow. I'm writing a feature, kind of spiritual successor to Face Your Fears, but it's a new game, new rhymes, and all that fun stuff of trying to develop a new game. And it's about drug addiction and talking to the dead. So it's combining those two things. And that's coming along. I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I'm also developing an anthology series, kind of like a Black Mirror, but more horror style, full of sort of sociological things that are happening right now. And yeah, those are pretty much the two things I'm working on at the moment.
And Anthony.
Yeah, you can follow me at Antselitti. It's ANTSELLITTI, and that's at Instagram and on Twitter. And yeah, just keeping really busy writing during quarantine. Writing a couple of features. 2 of them are horror, one of them is sci-fi. So just trying to keep those balls in the air. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you again to all of you for being with us for this Q&A. One of the things that we really felt like we wanted to preserve when we decided to take the festival online was the live Q&A, because otherwise we're just watching movies in our house. So we really appreciate you taking the time out to be here and talking with us and answering all of our questions. And here's Brian. I don't know. Did you pop in?
I guess I did.
You didn't really.
I'm working on tonight's show.
Yeah, I was doing such a good job. So.
You're doing such a good job. You didn't need any help. You have graduated into the big times. I just wanted to pop in and thank everyone for being here. It's really great. It's really great that we're able to do this. And now that we're more than halfway through and the ball is rolling downhill, like, we are both super relieved about how all this has worked out. And I just wanted to thank everybody that supported us, and thanks for being here and being part of this like weird ass festival that we've had to.
This is great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys
Thank
have
you.
been great.
It's,
we hope to see you all in Portland in person someday.
Yes.
yeah. So assuming that things are back to normal a year from now, get those films ready.
Yeah.
We want to see them.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you watching this Q&A, the next block of film starts at 6:30. And if you don't already have tickets for our demonic double feature at 6:30, which is Uncle Peckerhead, The Curse of Valburga, and Shorts Gone Wild, you can get those tickets on the Hollywood Theater website, or you can go to portlandhorrorfilmfestival.com/tickets and find out information there. All right.
Uncle Peckerhead is so good. Go see it. It's amazing.
Thanks again, guys.